guys, so today we are going to be creating some chapters for the interior of our book. So we're utilizing the same story that we used for the assignment last week. So whatever you used for your book cover, make sure that the inside matches. I'm going to show you how to get the text off of the website, how to kind of prepare it so that you can upload it into InDesign, how to separate it into each chapter, and then also how to display it as a book. So let's go into our book function real quick, I'll show you. And then besides that, there it goes in the other tab. And then that will have all of your chapters listed out here. That way you can save on space. It doesn't overload your computer with having so much text on there and so many pages. That'll help you with like your table of contents, laying things out. We're going to talk about templates. We're going to talk about section markers, chapters, page numbers, that kind of thing. We're going to use paragraph styles and character styles again. So you might remember that from the first assignment or the second assignment, I can't remember. And then I think that is all that we're going to be doing. I want you to make at least 3 chapters. You can feel free to make more. If you want to do the whole book, if you're in the flow, go for it. But minimum for the assignment is 3 chapters. I want to make sure that you get comfortable with it and that you understand how to use the book tabs. Yeah, so let's get started. All right, so if I pull up the assignment document, this right here is your link to Project Gutenberg. If you find your text somewhere else, I'm fine with that too. But I just wanted to give you a place where you'll be able to find your book, and then you can search for whichever book that you're using in the search tab, and whenever you find the one that you're looking for, go ahead and download the plain text UTF-8, and that's going to pull up this. So I have Winnie the Pooh for the one that I'm doing. You can use whichever one that you're going to use, and what you get is just plain text all the way through of the whole entire book. So you can tell it's quite long, and it's already broken into chapters, sort of. So you can see if I find at least this version has chapters in it. So I'll show you how, when we've downloaded it, how we're going to separate out each chapter into its own text document, and we can get rid of a little bit of this introductory text for the website and some of the end text. That way we have everything ready to go for importing it into InDesign. Okay, so what I've done here is I've downloaded, by just copy and pasting everything in the text document that we just looked at in Project Gutenberg. And so you can see it has all of the text here. So I have this document, it's the full thing. And then what I did is I made a folder for each chapter. And I'll show you my process. It's a little bit slow, and typically if you were working with an author, they would send it to you chapter by chapter, and so you wouldn't need to separate everything out. They would just send you one at a time. But since we're pulling from a public domain source, we'll have to separate it out ourselves most likely. So we only need 3, but you can get all of the chapters. It depends on how far you go. So all you need to do is do Control F. And then you're just going to type in the chapters. So we'll start with chapter 1. They're using Roman numerals, so it'll be chapter I. And then what I did was I found the start of this chapter. And actually we're going to go to chapter 2. And we're going to go up from there. Up to chapter 1, chapter I, open a new tab. This is just the notepad program. And then we have our whole first chapter all listed in here. So we'll do file and save. I already have mine saved, but you'll just save it as chapter 1. And then we'll go back to this side, and then you'll go to the next one. So we'll do Control F, chapter 3. You can go to the next section, scroll up until you find chapter 2, and copy that, Control C or Command C on the Mac, paste that, and now you have chapter 2. Okay, so that's going to be your workflow. Go ahead and grab each of the chapters for your book, or at least grab 3 of them for the assignment. Okay, so in InDesign now, I'm going to create a new document. So we're going to go File, New Document. And what comes up is your new document folder. So I'm going to set it to inches. We want it 6 by 9. We want 3 pages. We do want facing pages checked. We do want primary text frame checked. So both of those will be on. 1 column, if you're doing things in 2 columns or 3 columns, that's up to you. That's going to be how you lay out your text, of course. For the margins, we're going to set it to 75 inches, 0.75 inches, not 75 inches. And for bleed, you can leave this empty or you can put in 0.25. It depends on if you're planning on doing illustrations. If you want to put illustrations in, make sure you have a bleed. Okay, go ahead and click create. Okay, so this is going to be for our template document. So right now, what we have is our first 3 pages. I wanted to make sure that we have a spread. I wanted to make sure that we have that first right side. If we go into the parent section, so we'll double click, this is where we're going to make a couple of parents to make sure that all of our text is laid out the way that we want it to be and continuously following the same principles and layouts. So if you didn't, let me tell you one more thing before we get too far into it. So I've set my layout to typography. Yours probably is set to essentials. I would set it to typography for this project. I think that it's really helpful. Okay, so let's continue in. So we're on our A parent, and what we want to do for this one is we want to lay out how our chapter headers are going to be set up. So if you look at this document that I have here, the way that this was set up is I have a section for my chapters. I have a section for the little tagline, the little introductory text that happens every chapter for the story. And then I have a section here for the body text, and then I have a number. So let's go ahead and set that up on our document. So what we need to do first is grab our numbers. So we'll add a new text box. Now what's going to go in here is our section marker. So to add in that section marker, we're going to go to Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, Current Page Number. So you might want to take a screenshot or pause on that. So just to repeat, it's Type up at the top, Insert Special Character, Markers, Current Page Number. And so we're on A parent, so it labels it as A. But that's going to be your page number, okay? So if you want them to be aligned to the left, that's where you'll set that. If you want it to be aligned centered, go ahead and set it that way. Whatever you set this as here is going to be how it appears in the entirety of your book. So I'm gonna hold Alt or Option if you're on a Mac, and Shift and drag that over to the other side. So now we have both page numbers set up. Next we need to add a chapter. So let's go ahead and lower this primary text box. I want it about 1/3 of the way down. So if I'm looking at the ruler over on the left, we can kind of line it up with that inch marker. We'll add a new text box. And in this, I'm going to do Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, and this one will be Section Marker, and I'll show you how to adjust that in a minute. So for this, we're going to center it. This is going to be where it says what the chapter is. And so we're going to pick whichever kind of text we're going to use. We're going to choose all of the style for this. And I think I used Hightower for mine. Make it a little bigger. There we go. So So that's going to be our chapter. I'm going to hold Option or Alt and Shift and drag that again to the other side. So this means that whichever side of the page that we're using, it's going to follow this. You could even delete out if you go into pages. You could even delete out one of your pages. It's up to you. Let's go ahead and lower this down so it's even. And we have, for this particular story, there's some intro text, so let's go down a little bit further, maybe like a 1/2 inch. And let's include a text box for that now. And for this, we don't need to fill it in with any text because we'll be updating that later. What I'm looking for is that this and this gap is about even. And by that logic, we can even make these a little bit smaller so that we can really align it properly. There we go. And you're the designer, so however you think looks best for your story, I think that that's what you should go for. Okay, so now we have our text boxes set up. We have our template ready, and that's going to be for our chapters. So what you can do is go into a parent and put that down. Okay, so that's going to be a parent. We're going to add one more. This one's B parent, and this is going to be for the interior pages of our book. So if I pull out my previous one down again, if we go down, you can see that I have the section header, I have the author's name, I have my page numbers again, and I have the text. And the text is flowing. I'll show you how to do that. But that's all we need to set up for the template. So let's go ahead and get that ready. So we'll add in a text box for the author's name. Okay, and then on the right side, I've duplicated that text box over. And over here, we want to have the chapter number, so the section name, whatever that's going to be. So here we're just going to do the same thing, insert special character, markers, and section marker. Down at the bottom, we need the page number. So I'm going to go back up to A parent, copy this, go back to B parent. I'm going to do Control-Shift-Alt-V, and that is on a PC. For you, it'll be Command-Option-Shift-V if you're on a Mac. Option or Alt to drag that over. And so now we have our repeating page numbers, we have our chapter numbers, we have the author's name on each of the left pages, and then we have text boxes in here for the body text. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that out now. So here we have our regular pages. You can see that it's filling in page number 1. We have our first page of text. Below that we have page number 2 and 3. And you can see that this is set up as a chapter page right now. So if we go into our pages, we want to right click and we want to set these as page B. And same over here. So when I click into the page, I should have this text box here. Now let's go ahead and save this as a template. So we're going to do File, Save As, and when this pops up, we're going to say, instead of InDesign Document, InDesign Template. Okay, so I'm going to call this Winnie the Pooh Template, and click Save. So now when I open a new document, File, Open, we can use this Winnie the Pooh template, and if you wanted to edit the original, edit the template, set it to original. If you want to edit the edit pages based off of that template, click on normal, and that'll be really similar on Mac too. So we'll click open, and so this is going to be our first chapter. So we can do file, save as, and call it chapter 1. Chapter 1. So now we can go into the first section. We're going to double click on this arrow, or you can say right click and numbering and section options. For the section marker, we're going to call this chapter 1. We're going to start the pages numbering at 1 because we are on the chapter 1 first section. And we're going to just click OK. If you want this to be set to set your page numbers to Roman numerals or anything like that, change that here. We're just going to leave it as 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll click OK. It auto-populates the chapter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go into my File Explorer and grab the chapters that I had laid out earlier. So I have my chapter 1, and I'm going to do a file place, grab chapter 1, open, and now I have that here. Instead of just clicking into this text box, hold shift, and you can see that little squiggly line that appears when I hold shift. That is saying it's going to flow the text into the next text box. So we'll click, and then you can see that it's automatically updated all of these pages. And you keep in mind that's just for chapter 1, so we'll have to repeat that for each one. If you grabbed from your full text, it might take your document a little while to load depending on how many pages there are. I know with 20,000 Links Under the Sea there was about 900 pages, and that made InDesign go really slow. So that's why you really want to use just separate chapters, keep the documents a little bit smaller and more concise so that InDesign can run on your computer a little bit easier and you have a little bit of organization. So there's a few things we need to change. First thing, we don't need all of this here. I'm going to copy out this introductory text and then just delete the rest. Okay. We can go ahead and place the intro text here. And now we need to go through and fix our formatting. So something that you might do that'll be really handy is over in CC Libraries, you can click Add, and you can add in your chapters one at a time. And that way you have that ready to go. You can just click and drag from there. Same with your intro text. It depends on how much you're going to be working with it, but that can be really helpful. Here I have the whole entire document for Winnie the Pooh. So that's the whole book. And you can go through and set things up like that. The other thing is I've also set up my paragraph styles so that each time I switch between chapters, I always have the same paragraph styles for each of these. So I have my first paragraph, and so I can show you what that looks like. So what I wanted to do is make sure that I have that first letter in drop caps, and then I also set up my text so that I have it in Book Antiqua. I have the leading set up already, I have the text set up already, so let's go ahead and do that together. Something else that I want to talk to you about is if you notice when I copied the text from the website, it has a line return every time. And so you can see that it's breaking this up in a weird way. That's not how it should go. So we need to go ahead and solve that. Okay, I have that written out for us, so I want you to follow this just so that you can make sure that that is taken care of on each page. So I'll let you screenshot that or pause on here, but I'm going to walk you through how to do that too. So what we need to do is do a find change. So to get that menu pulled up, we're going to press Control F to pull up this find change menu. And there's a few things that we need to set up. So the first thing is we want to make sure that we get rid of all of these extra paragraph breaks. So we're going to set it to text, and then in this drop-down menu, we're going to look for end of paragraph. So that's going to give you that code. That's going to be the up caret and P, and we want to change that just to space. And what that's going to do is give you a double space every time you run into that. So we're going to say change all, it'll tell us how many we changed. Oops, we need to go into our text box. Change all. It found 372 instances of an end of paragraph, and so you'll see how it updates. Now there's no line breaks, which is a problem. So what we need to do is set this to double space and change that to end of paragraph. So every time it finds two spaces next to each other, it's going to change it to double paragraph, or to just an end of line. So we'll say change all. So it found 247 of those now, and it updates it for us. So you can see that that's much clearer, much more the way that it ought to be, where the paragraphs are together where they're meant to be. So next, when I copied this text over, there's some places where there's some underscores. We don't need any underscores, so we're going to do Control F. We want to find any instances of an underscore. We want to change that to nothing. So change all. It found 78 of those, and it cleans that up for us. There's also some spots where there are some parentheses, and those aren't meant to be there. Sometimes they would be, so be careful with when you're using that. You can set parenthesis, change it to nothing, and you can say change all, or you can say find next in case you are meant to have those parentheses in your particular story. So we can say change all for this particular situation. There's only 3 of them. We'll set it to the right one now. Change all. There should only be 3. And we'll click done. So you can see that things are a little bit better, but there's a problem. They used some asterisks, some stars, to give this area some separation. So that's something that I want you to make sure that you scroll through and actually look through your document and make sure that you have this set up properly. So I'm going to delete that out, press enter, and just put in those stars for us. And then I have a paragraph style set up in my other document. I'm going to set that up for this document, where I center it. I'm going to set the spacing to 5,000, and I want the paragraph styles to change just a little bit, where I have a space before and a space after too. So we only want a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, and so that should give me plenty of space. So every time I see this, I'll go and I'll add in those 5 stars, and I'll save this paragraph style. So I'll click New Paragraph Style, double click it. It pulls up this dialog box. I'm just going to call it stars, and it's going to save based on how I set this up. Okay, so there should be one more instance of that in this chapter, I believe. There it is. So I want to make sure that I grab all of that, double click, and set it to stars. And now it lays it out for us. So that's the first thing I want to make sure that I change. You can see that doing that got rid of a few of our pages. That's fine, we just want to keep going. So next, what I want to do is I want to set my paragraph style so that I have the right text. I want to give my text some space. I want to give some indentations, and I want to give bigger indentations for any time the text is dialogue. So I have an example here in our homework assignment down at the bottom. And you can see in the Winnie the Pooh original version, maybe not original, that every time that there's dialogue, it indents a little bit further. There's a small indent for every new section, which is typical, but we want it to go a little bit further. You can see the way that they have it set up. They have some small caps for the first word, as well as a 2-line drop cap. You can see that their introduction, they have a line here. We could add that in. We have some drop caps for the first text. And they're setting it up in a specific way for this book. For The Secret Garden, they have a 4-line drop cap. The first word is set to the same amount of text, and you can see that they don't have as big of text here because this one is for typically smaller kids. Whereas here they have some smaller text, and it's in these great big sections. They have indents for each paragraph, and then they have just a small similar indent for anytime they see text. And then you can see for the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea version, they have their chapters aligned to the left. It's a lot more of like a stately font, really small description for their text, or for their chapter, their intros, and it looks like they don't leave page numbers on theirs. They have no indents, and it feels very clinical almost, so it changes that kind of style, and you can see how each of these are using that. So I'm going to exit that. Okay, so we want to do something similar. So we're going to set this first paragraph to have, well, let's go ahead and give it some leading. So I want to set the leading to 18 points. I want that to be for the whole paragraph. 18-point leading. I want the font to be Book Antigua for mine. So I'm giving it just a little bit more space. That way it's a little bit readable. It still feels like it's combined together. It still feels like it's one with one another. But it gives you just a little bit of separation, a little bit of room, so it's not so much on your brain. It gives it a little space. For this first intro, I want it to have a drop cap, so we're going to go into paragraph and give it we'll do 3-line drop cap. Something I'm doing is choosing a serif font. Okay, so I'm going to keep that. I'm going to save this as a paragraph style, so we will go in here, add a new paragraph style, and I'm going to call this one first paragraph. I'm going to duplicate style, and we'll call this body text. And we're going to apply that here, but you'll notice that it gives that big drop cap, so we need to get rid of that, because we don't want a drop cap for every single line, just the first one. So we'll set that back to 1, go back to paragraph styles. For body text, we'll just say redefine style. And so now that's what it means whenever we see that. So we're going to do Control A, that'll grab everything. We'll set it to body text and then just change the first one back. So something else that we want to do is give everything an indent. So we want to indent the first line. So I'm going to hold shift so that it sets it to 1/4 inch. So now we have a 1/4 inch indent on this paragraph. And we've already set everything to body text, so now when I say redefine style, it's going to do that for everything. We could leave it like that, but for dialogue, I want it to be just pushed a little bit further. So I'm going to do duplicate style for body text. We'll call it dialogue. And we can change things in here. So we'll go into indents and spacing. And for this first line indent, we're just going to leave it at 375 instead. So we'll click OK. And then for dialogue, we want to change that where we see anytime the line starts with quotes. So what we'll do is do Control F. We'll set it to quotes, and we want to do end of paragraph, line break. So that'll be standard carriage return, and then a quote. And we want to leave it like that, so we'll do the same thing. End of paragraph, line break, and then a quote. And we have this format set already. We want to change the format to the paragraph style dialogue and click OK. So we're not changing anything up here. What we're changing is this format. And let's see if it'll find anything. If not, we might have to remove that end of paragraph. So it only found one. Let's try that again with removing the paragraph. There we go, 93 replacements. So you can see anytime I have that dialogue, it pushes it just a little bit further. Okay, now Winnie the Pooh is a very sweet book, and there's some little poems that they make in each of these. So every time that we see anything like that, I just want to make sure that I can go through and edit that. So there's a few extra lines there. There we go. So when we see this, I want to have this set up a little bit differently. So what I want to do is set this so that it aligns a little bit more center for the whole thing. And I might want to change the text for this. So what I might do is try drop caps. What I could do instead might be switching it to italic. That might look nice. Maybe we want to make sure that it is pushed in quite a bit on the right and the left in case they get a bit long. Maybe we want a little bit of spacing, a little bit larger spacing, leading. Yeah, that looks pretty sweet. So I'm going to save this one as one more paragraph style. We're going to call this poems. Alright, so now I have all my paragraph styles. I can go into my CC libraries now. I'm going to set that over here. And let's pop up pages. Or actually, let's leave pages where it is. We'll pop out CC libraries. Alright. So now I can add these in. So I'm going to add a new folder. We'll call this Winnie the Pooh. And then down here, let's go ahead and add in paragraph style. So we'll click the plus. We'll say paragraph style. And that's going to be for poems, that paragraph style. Grab a piece of dialogue, paragraph style for dialogue, drag that up. We want to do that again for body text. Yes, in body text. We have that first page, so we'll go back up to pages. And for that first paragraph, we'll click on paragraph style 2, drag that up. And then we left out our intro text. Let's go ahead and adjust that really quick too. Okay, so for this one, this had some extra spaces in it already. So let's go ahead and make sure that that is taken out so that we can make our adjustments now. So for this, we already had it set to drop caps. It comes in that way. I want to give it centered text, and I want to give it quite a bit of space. Something else is that in my paragraphs tab, I don't want it to hyphenate. Let's go ahead and minimize this. So I'm going to unclick hyphenate. That way it keeps everything together. And then for that, I want to do that same thing for all of my paragraph styles. So let's go ahead and edit those two. Make sure that the paragraph styles don't hyphenate. So we'll say redefine. Oops. And what we can do is we'll just say edit and make sure that we can change it in here. So we'll go into hyphenation and we'll just say unhyphenate. Okay. Poems. Hyphenation. Hyphenate. Okay, that should be perfect. Alright, so now we have this first section set up pretty well. We can look through and just make sure it looks okay. We have a little bit of a poem over here. Let's go ahead and correct that really quick. And I think this is also a poem here, actually. And so for that, I want to add in a few extra spaces just so that I can make sure that this whole poem is on its own paragraph. Just a quick look through, make sure everything looks right. Okay, that looks good. Let's go into pages, pull that down. We just want to get rid of these pages that we're not using, so we can delete those out. All right, that looks great. Okay, so now we have that all set up for every page. What we want to do is start on the next chapter. All right, so for chapter 2, let's go ahead and make a new file. So we need to do open again. We want to do back to demo. Winnie the Pooh template again. We want normal and click OK. So now we have our template one more time. And so for this, we're going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to kind of set that all up the same way that I did before, and I'll pop back in. Alright, that is looking good to me. So like I said, I did the exact same thing as I did before. I used my fine change to give myself some indents, make sure that there's no more of that adding extra lines in random places. I went through and made sure that there is no underscores, no parentheses where they shouldn't be. I checked for poems. So we have this first poem up here, made sure that that is in the right style. Same for that first line and that intro text. And then I just deleted out the extra pages that were there. So now we can save this one as chapter 2. So we save it as chapter 2. And what we can do now is we're going to set up a book. Okay, so now we're going to create a book. So we're going to do File, New, Book. It's going to have you navigate to your folder where you're saving things. And we're just going to save it as the book's title, so we might call it Winnie the Pooh. And all it does is give us this little dialog box to keep track of things. When we click this plus sign, we're going to be able to put our chapters in here. And it's going to keep track of how many pages each of these have. And so as you go through, you can add in more chapters as you make more, and then save them into your book. That's going to help with organization and table of contents. That's something that I want you to submit as well. So we're almost done. We have just the third chapter to create. You would just follow the exact same steps that we had before. Make sure that you have reviewed all of your chapters and make sure that they look the way that you're wanting them to. Make sure that there's no large gaps, anything like that. One last thing that I wanted to show you. So when you go to export, I want you to go to File, Export, and I want you to go ahead and save this. We'll say chapter 2 page and leave that empty with a space. We'll click Save. And then what we want is just the range. And so you'll need to make sure that you're going off of your page number in your document. So if we want pages 10 to 13, we need to type that in. We don't need spreads, we just need pages. And then we don't want a transparent background, so make sure that you check that off, okay? And then you'll just click export. And then when that's finished, what you should have is chapter 2, page 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it doesn't save it with your proper page number, so you might have to go back and rearrange that. But if I open that up, what that gives me is just the image of each of those pages. There we go. And that's all I'll need from you guys. So I'll need those first 3 pages, and then those InDesign documents and your book, and your template file. And then all of that is listed out in the Word document on your description, so just go ahead and look through there. And if you follow along with the demo, follow along with the Word document, you should have everything that you need. Let me know if you have any questions or if you need any help, and feel free to visit my office hours, and I will see you on Monday.